Welcome back, and thank you for tuning in to HK Cheating Stories. We appreciate each and every one of you joining us. Where in the world are you watching from? Let us know in the comments. Now, let's get the story started. My name is Ethan Carter. I've spent years working as a critical care nurse, saving lives, spotting danger before it even strikes. I can tell when a patient's heart is about to give out just by the way they breathe. But somehow, I never saw this coming. For 18 years, I built a life with my wife, Lauren. A home, a family. I thought we were solid. Until one email changed everything. No subject, no message, just a single video file. What I saw in that video shattered my world. But it also set something else in motion. Revenge. And I was going to make sure they never forgot it. I always thought of myself as a man who could read between the lines. In the ICU, where seconds decide life and death, I've saved more patients than I can count just by spotting the tiniest warning signs, a flickering eyelid, a slight change in breathing, the way a heartbeat stutters just before it crashes. But when it came to my own wife, I was completely blind. It was a slow Sunday afternoon. I sat on my patio, a cold beer in one hand, staring out at the bayou stretching behind my house. The land had been in my family for generations, a gift from my grandfather, just like the house I lived in now. My father had built it himself, a traditional Southern home with modern comforts, and I had spent years filling it with love. 18 years of marriage. 4 incredible kids. A wife I thought I knew better than anyone. I took a sip of beer, letting the bitterness roll over my tongue as I glanced down at my phone. That's when I saw the email. Subject, you should know. There was no message, just a single attachment. A video file. I frowned, hesitated, then tapped the screen. The video started grainy, a bit shaky, as if it had been recorded from a hidden camera. But as the picture focused, my stomach dropped. Lauren, my wife, in a dimly lit room, with another man. No, not just any man. Adam, my brother-in-law, my sister Rachel's husband. I froze, my breath catching in my throat. My fingers tightened around my phone as the video played on, showing them wrapped around each other, their voices muffled but unmistakable. The angle shifted, 3 separate angles, in fact, meaning there were multiple cameras recording the same moment. Someone had set this up. Someone wanted me to see this. My pulse pounded in my ears as I watched my wife, the woman I had trusted with everything, laugh softly, her fingers running through Adam's hair. I clenched my jaw, my stomach twisting into knots. I should have been angry. I should have thrown my phone across the yard, shattered it into 1,000 pieces. Instead, I just sat there. Numb. For almost 2 decades, I had built my life around this woman. I had worked extra shifts to take her on vacations, bought her jewelry, made sure our kids had everything they needed. I had loved her in ways I didn't even think I was capable of. And now, she had thrown it all away like it meant nothing. The screen faded to black, the video ending without any explanation. But I didn't need one. The proof was right in front of me. I leaned back in my chair, exhaling slowly, willing myself to stay calm. There was only one person I could call. Rachel. I hit dial, barely noticing how tight my grip was on the phone. The moment she picked up, I could hear the concern in her voice. Ethan? What's wrong? I hesitated. How the hell was I supposed to tell my sister that her husband was sleeping with my wife? That our entire family was built on a lie? Come over, I said, my voice strained. Now. She didn't ask questions. Rachel never did. 15 minutes later, she was sitting across from me, her sharp blue eyes scanning my face like she already knew something was off. Isn't it a little early for a drink? She asked, nodding toward the beer in my hand. I'm off for the weekend, I muttered. Figured I'd start early. Rachel raised an eyebrow, but said nothing. Instead, she reached for the drink I had set out for her and took a sip. So, she said, leaning forward. What's going on? I unlocked my phone and handed it to her. Press play. Rachel frowned, but did as I asked. I watched her face as the video played. The way her expression shifted from confusion to horror, then rage. She sucked in a sharp breath. No. I nodded, my throat too tight to speak. No way, she said again, her voice shaking. They wouldn't. She stopped, because she knew damn well they would. She knew because she had spent the last few years defending Adam's late nights, his work meetings, the way he suddenly started taking his phone calls outside. Just like I had done for Lauren. Rachel shot up from her chair, pacing across the patio like a caged animal. That cheating bastard, she seethed. And your wife? She clenched her fists. Oh, they have no idea who they just screwed over. I exhaled slowly, trying to keep my hands from shaking. We need a plan, I said, my voice steady now. We don't just walk in there and confront them. Not yet. Rachel turned to me, her face a mask of determination. No, she said, a dark glint in her eyes. We destroy them. I looked back at her, something cold settling in my chest. They deserve worse than that. Rachel stood there, fists clenched, breathing hard. I could see the way her mind was racing, the same way mine was. We had just watched our spouses betray us in the most gut-wrenching way possible, and yet, we weren't breaking down. Not yet. Instead, something darker was rising inside us. I took another sip of my beer, letting the bitter taste ground me. My heart was still hammering against my ribs, but my hands had stopped shaking. If I let my emotions take control, I'd do something reckless. And if I was going to get even, I needed to be smart. We don't rush this, I said finally, breaking the silence. Rachel turned to me, eyes still burning with rage. Ethan, they're screwing behind our backs. And we're supposed to what? Pretend like nothing's wrong. I shook my head. No, we're going to make them pay. But if we explode now, we give them control. We give them a chance to spin the story, to make excuses. I met her gaze. We need to hit them where it hurts. And that means planning every single move. Rachel took a deep breath, her fingers flexing as if she wanted to wrap them around Adam's throat. Fine, she muttered. Then what's the plan? I leaned back in my chair, thinking. I have a prenup, I said. So do you? Rachel's eyes narrowed. Yeah. What about it? Our prenups say that if there's infidelity, they only get 20% of the joint assets. No alimony. No negotiating. I let that sink in. If we prove they cheated, they walk away with almost nothing. Rachel's lips curled into a slow, dangerous smile. That's a start, she said. But I want more. So do I. We both sat there for a moment, staring out at the bayou, the weight of what we had just discovered pressing down on us. Then Rachel straightened. First things first. We keep our mouths shut. I nodded. We act normal. Same routine. No changes. If they think something's off, they'll get cautious. Rachel exhaled sharply. You're asking a lot from me, Ethan. I don't know if I can kiss that lying piece of garbage goodnight. You have to. She swallowed hard, gripping the arms of her chair. Fine. But the moment we have everything we need, I want to see their faces when it all comes crashing down. I smirked. Oh, don't worry. We'll make sure they never forget it. Rachel stood up, her energy almost manic now. All right. We need a lawyer. I already have one in mind, I said. Jack. He's the best divorce attorney in town. Rachel nodded. Good. We need to move money around. Make sure they don't get their hands on anything we don't want them to have. Already ahead of you. She paced back and forth. And the kids? We can't let them find out. Not yet. I sighed. Agreed. This is going to be hard enough on them. They don't need to see the worst of it. Rachel stopped pacing and looked at me. Her voice softened, just a little. Are you okay? I hesitated. The truth was, I wasn't. But that didn't matter right now. I will be, I said. She nodded, understanding. Me too. Then, a slow grin spread across her face. You know, she said. If I didn't know any better, I'd say whoever sent you that email wanted us to do something about this. I thought about it. The video was too perfectly recorded, too well-angled. Someone had gone through a lot of trouble to capture this affair. And if there was one video, there might be more, I said. Rachel's eyes gleamed. Then we find them. I stood up, stretching my arms as I let the rage settle deep inside me, turning into something colder, more calculated. They think they've won, I said. They think we're clueless. That we'll never find out. Rachel scoffed. They don't know who they're dealing with. I turned to her, nodding. We don't just end this, Rachel. We make sure they regret it for the rest of their lives. The next morning, I woke up before sunrise, my mind already racing. Sleep had been out of the question. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that damn video playing over and over again. Lauren's laughter. Adam's hands on her. The way she looked at him. The way she used to look at me. But anger was a hell of a motivator. By the time the coffee finished brewing, I had already gone through our bank accounts, making note of every shared asset, every joint account, every dollar Lauren might try to sink her claws into. I wasn't about to let her walk away with anything more than she deserved, 20%, and not a cent more. Rachel showed up at my door just as I was pouring my second cup of coffee. Couldn't sleep either? She asked, dark circles under her eyes. I shook my head. Too much to do. She pulled out a chair and sat down, rubbing her temples. I hate this. Every second of it. But I want to make sure they feel this 10 times worse. I slid a stack of bank statements across the table. Then let's get started. We spent the next few hours making calls, shifting money into new accounts under our names only. We weren't stealing anything, just protecting what was rightfully ours. The last thing I wanted was for Lauren to wake up one morning and decide to empty our savings before I could serve her the divorce papers. By the time we were done, every joint credit card was canceled, every automatic payment was rerouted, and every important document was locked away where she couldn't touch it. Rachel grinned as she hung up with her bank. Adam is going to lose his damn mind when he realizes his name isn't on any of my accounts anymore. Good, I muttered. Let him feel what it's like to have the rug pulled out from under him. At 10 a.m., we walked into Jack's law office. He was an old friend, sharp as a blade and ruthless in a courtroom. Just the kind of guy we needed. Jack leaned back in his chair, flipping through the file I had sent him. You two are in a pretty strong position. Ironclad prenups, clear-cut infidelity. This is going to be fun. Rachel crossed her arms. We're not here for fun. We want to make sure they walk away with nothing. Jack smirked. Oh, don't worry. They won't just lose money. They'll lose their dignity, too. I sat forward. What's the best way to hit them where it hurts? Jack tapped a pen against his desk. First, we prove infidelity. Once that's on record, the prenups take care of the rest. But we also need to be strategic. The goal isn't just to win. It's to make sure they suffer while we do it. Rachel grinned. Now you're speaking my language. Jack continued. We'll serve the divorce papers in public, somewhere that will humiliate them. Work would be best. They won't see it coming. I nodded. Do it. Jack leaned back. Also, if either of them has been hiding money, we need to find it before they try to move it. Any offshore accounts, secret investments, anything that might be a problem later. Rachel and I exchanged a look. There's something else, I said. We've been getting these videos. Anonymous sender. They had multiple camera angles of the affair. Someone set this up. Jack's eyebrows lifted. Interesting. Could be a private investigator. Could be someone with a grudge. He rubbed his chin. If there's more footage, we need to get our hands on it. The more evidence, the better. Rachel tapped her fingers on the desk. What if we find something worse? What if they're hiding more than just an affair? Jack's smirk widened. Then we bury them with it. As we left the office, I felt something shift inside me. Yesterday, I had been drowning in anger and betrayal. Now, I had direction. A purpose. Rachel walked beside me, her jaw set. We're going to ruin them, Ethan. I glanced at her. No, we're going to make sure they ruin themselves. She smirked. Same difference. I pulled out my phone, scrolling through my emails. No new messages from our mystery informant. But I had a feeling we weren't done hearing from them. Rachel nudged my arm. So, when do we tell the kids? I sighed, shoving my phone back in my pocket. Not yet. We wait until the moment's right. She nodded. And until then, I took a deep breath, feeling the cold, calculated rage settle in my bones. We act normal, I said, and we let them dig their own graves. The thing about betrayal is that it spreads like poison. It doesn't just ruin marriages. It seeps into the cracks of everything, infecting the people around you, twisting what they thought was real into something rotten. I thought I was protecting my kids by keeping the truth from them. I had no idea they were already 10 steps ahead of me. It started the night after our meeting with Jack. I was in my office, reviewing the financials one last time, when Rachel called me. You need to get over here, she said, her voice sharp. I could hear something strange in the background. Whispering. Movement. What's going on? I asked, already grabbing my keys. Rachel hesitated. The kids they know. My stomach dropped. When I got to Rachel's house, I walked straight into the living room to find them waiting for me. My son, Noah, sat with his arms crossed, his jaw clenched tight. Beside him were his cousins, Rachel's 3 kids, all wearing identical expressions of determination. I glanced at Rachel. How much do they know? She exhaled slowly. All of it. I turned back to the kids. How? That's when Noah pulled out his phone. We've known for weeks, Dad. He handed it to me, and as soon as I saw the screen, I felt my blood run cold. It was the video. The same video I had received from the anonymous sender. But instead of being confused or shocked, Noah and the others were looking at me like they were waiting for a reaction. Like they had expected me to see this. I set the phone down carefully. Where did you get this? Noah didn't flinch. We made it. For a moment, I couldn't speak. Rachel sucked in a breath. You what? Noah exchanged a look with his cousins before turning back to me. His voice was steady. We've known for a while that something was off. Mom was disappearing at weird times. Uncle Adam too. So we started watching them. Rachel sat down heavily, her hands gripping the armrests of her chair. Jesus. Noah continued. At first, we just used the locator app Mom made us install on our phones. When she didn't answer our calls, we'd check where she was. It didn't take long to notice a pattern. One of Rachel's sons, Jake, leaned forward. They always ended up at the same apartment. So we checked it out. I stared at them. You went there? Noah nodded. We saw Uncle Adam's car outside. We knew something was up. So we got inside. I swore under my breath. How? Rachel's daughter, Lily, smirked. Mom and Uncle Adam had spare keys to the apartment. We made a copy. Rachel pressed her fingers to her temple. I'm going to be sick. Noah went on like he hadn't heard her. We didn't want to say anything until we were sure. So we set up cameras. My head snapped up. Cameras? Noah nodded. 5 of them. Motion activated. We set them up in places they wouldn't notice. Lily added. The videos automatically uploaded to a private cloud account. We checked them every few days. I felt like I was in a dream, like none of this was real. My kids had done all of this. They had been watching, collecting evidence, long before I even suspected anything. And they had sent the video to me. I sat down heavily. Why didn't you tell us? Noah finally hesitated, looking down at his hands. Because we didn't want you to do something stupid. Rachel let out a sharp laugh, but there was no humor in it. I shook my head. You think you're protecting us? Lily shrugged. A little. But mostly, we just wanted to make sure they didn't get away with it. I rubbed my hands over my face. This is insane. Noah leaned forward, his voice quiet. Dad, they weren't just cheating on you. They were cheating on us too. That hit me like a punch to the gut. I had spent so much time being angry at Lauren that I hadn't even thought about what this meant for my kids. They had looked up to her, trusted her, and she had thrown it all away. Rachel exhaled sharply. Okay, we deal with this later. Right now, we need to figure out what to do next. I looked at my son, my nephews, my niece. Do you still have access to the cameras? I asked. Noah nodded. Yeah. Then we keep watching, I said. We wait. And when the time is right. Rachel's smirk was slow, but it was dangerous. We burn them to the ground. I always believed revenge was best served cold. But watching my wife's world crumble in real time, that was ice cold, and I was savoring every second. Rachel and I sat in my truck across from their office building, the sun glaring down on the windshield, casting sharp reflections. My fingers tapped rhythmically against the steering wheel as we waited. In the back seat, Noah and Lily were practically vibrating with excitement. Rachel exhaled, gripping the armrest. I wish we could see their faces. I smirked. Oh, don't worry. We will. Jack had arranged for the process servers to record everything. I could already imagine Lauren's reaction. The way she'd clutch her pearls and pretend to be the victim. Maybe even conjure up some crocodile tears. And Adam? He'd try to act unfazed, but I knew better. My phone buzzed. Jack, it's happening. Rachel leaned forward, eyes locked on the entrance. A minute later, Noah's phone dinged. He opened a video attachment, his eyes widening as he hit play. There it was. The moment of impact. Lauren and Adam, standing in the middle of their office, confused, then horrified as 2 uniformed men handed them the documents. Gasps rippled through the room. Employees whispered, heads turning like a wave crashing through the crowd. Lauren's hand trembled as she flipped through the pages. Her lips parted, her eyes darting from line to line. But the real reaction came when someone, a coworker, maybe an assistant, leaned over and read the words printed in bold at the top. Rachel let out a low whistle. Damn, that's gotta sting. Adam's face went beet red. His jaw tightened, hands balling into fists. I could see the gears turning in his head, scrambling for a way out, a way to explain this away. But there was none. Then came the real masterpiece. A manila envelope was placed directly on Lauren's desk. A separate delivery. She hesitated before tearing it open, pulling out a thick stack of photos. I knew what she was looking at. Still frames from the videos. Crystal clear images of her and Adam wrapped up in each other. Time-stamped. Undeniable. Lauren gasped. Her body stiffened. Then, she let out a raw, guttural scream. I grinned. There it is. Adam slammed his hand against the desk. The office erupted. People were staring, whispering, some even holding their phones up, recording, no doubt. The panic hit Adam first. He turned to Lauren, saying something I couldn't hear, but the look on his face said it all. We're screwed. Noah let out a bark of laughter. Oh my God, this is better than I imagined. Rachel chuckled darkly. Bet you they regret it now. The best part? This wasn't even the end of it. I felt my phone vibrate. I didn't have to look at the screen to know who it was. Lauren. I let it ring. Then again. And again. Finally, I picked up, putting her on speaker so Rachel and the kids could hear. Her voice was frantic. Ethan, what the hell did you do? I took my time answering, savoring the desperation in her voice. I did exactly what you deserved. You humiliated me, she screeched. In front of everyone. I smirked. Oh, sweetheart. That was just the beginning. There was silence on the other end. Then, in a voice so pitiful I almost laughed, she whispered. I didn't mean for this to happen. I clenched my jaw, my fingers tightening around the phone. I glanced at Noah, at Lily, at Rachel. They were waiting for my response. And I didn't hold back. You did. You just never thought you'd get caught. Then I hung up. Rachel's phone rang next. Adam. She picked up with the same calmness I had. Yes. I could hear him stammering, struggling to find the right words, still trying to play innocent. Ratch, we need to talk. She scoffed. We sure do. Then she hung up, tossing her phone onto the dashboard. Noah grinned. That was awesome. Rachel high-fived him. I turned the key in the ignition, pulling out of the parking lot. The job was done. The bomb had been dropped. There was no coming back from this for them. Noah leaned back, arms crossed. What's next? I smirked. Oh, son, we're just getting started. By the time we got home, the high of watching Lauren and Adam's public humiliation had started to settle into something colder, something sharper. The battle wasn't over yet. If anything, this was just the beginning. I sat at the kitchen table, staring at my laptop, fingers tapping rhythmically against the wooden surface. Rachel was across from me, nursing a beer, her expression unreadable. Noah and Lily were still riding the adrenaline rush, but they had sense enough to stay quiet. Rachel finally spoke. They're gonna fight back. I nodded. I know. Lauren wasn't the type to go down without a fight. No, she'd be grasping at anything she could to crawl her way out of the hole she'd dug for herself. And Adam? He had spent his entire life conning people into believing he was smarter than he actually was. But they had both underestimated us. And now, we were going to take everything. I pulled up the bank records I had copied earlier that week. Our joint accounts, Lauren's personal savings, every financial document I could get my hands on. I had combed through them at least a dozen times, looking for anything suspicious. And that's when I saw it. An unfamiliar transaction. Large. Out of place. I clicked on the details, my pulse kicking up a notch. Rachel. She leaned forward. What? I turned my laptop toward her. Look at this. 2 weeks ago, $50,000 was transferred out of our joint savings. The destination? A bank in the Cayman Islands. Rachel's eyes darkened. That son of a... I'm not done. I scrolled further. Here's another one. $40,000 from Adam and your joint account. Same destination. Rachel's fingers curled into fists. They were trying to hide money. I exhaled slowly, leaning back in my chair. Looks like it. Noah sat forward. Can we get it back? I smirked. Oh, we can do more than that. Jack had warned us to check for hidden assets. Luckily for us, our kids had done half the work already. Lily grinned. You guys are gonna love this. She pulled out her phone, swiping through files before handing it over. While we were digging through Mom's secret apartment, we found these. Rachel and I looked down. It was a series of bank statements, account numbers, login credentials, instructions, all in Lauren's handwriting. My blood ran cold. Where did you find this? Lily shrugged. Mom kept a notebook in her purse. Guess she didn't think we'd ever see it. Rachel let out a sharp laugh. They really are idiots. Noah smirked. Wait, it gets better. He swiped to another screenshot. See this? It's an authorization email. Looks like they plan to transfer more money next week. Guess that won't be happening anymore. I let out a low whistle. They really thought they were going to get away with this. Rachel exhaled. So what now? Can we block the transfers? I smirked. Better. We take the money before they even realize it's gone. Noah and Lily exchanged a look. How? I turned the laptop back toward me, fingers flying over the keyboard. Lauren used the same password for multiple accounts. Let's see if she was dumb enough to do it here. Rachel leaned forward, watching intently. I typed in the credentials from the notebook, hit enter, and access granted. Silence. Then Rachel let out a sharp, delighted laugh. Oh, this is too easy. We stared at the screen, looking at their secret offshore account. The balance stared back at us. $90,000. I exhaled. This is it. This is the money they stole from us. Noah grinned. And now we steal it back. Rachel tapped her fingers against the table. Legally, can we? I smirked. Legally? Probably not. But considering it was our money to begin with, I'd say we're just correcting a mistake. Rachel's grin was pure venom. Then do it. I didn't hesitate. I initiated the transfer, sending the money into our accounts, dividing it equally between myself, Rachel, and the kids. The whole process took less than 5 minutes. By the time I finished, my pulse was steady, my mind clear. Lauren and Adam had planned to leave us with nothing. Now, they had nothing. I leaned back, stretching my arms. Done. Rachel let out a slow breath. Damn, that felt good. Lily checked her phone. Guys. We all looked at her. She turned her screen around. It was a new email. From Pissed Off 999. The anonymous sender who had started all of this. Rachel and I exchanged a look before I clicked it open. A single sentence. They're going to find out. Be ready. A chill ran down my spine. Because I had a feeling the real war was just beginning. The moment I stepped into the courthouse, I could feel the tension crackling in the air. The whole place smelled of old wood and legal battles, of whispered deals and shattered lives. Today, it was my turn to watch someone else's world crumble. Lauren and Adam were already there, sitting side by side at the long table in front of the judge. They both looked like they hadn't slept in days. Lauren's usually perfect hair was a mess. Her makeup smeared from what I could only assume had been hours of crying. Adam looked worse. His suit was wrinkled, his jaw clenched so tight I thought he might crack a tooth. Good. Rachel and I walked in together, our heads held high. Jack followed behind us, cool and composed, his briefcase in one hand, his smirk in place. Lauren shot me a desperate look, as if hoping there was still a chance to fix things. Adam wouldn't even meet Rachel's eyes. Coward. The judge, an older man with tired eyes, flipped through the case file. When he finally spoke, his voice was like gravel grinding against stone. Let's get to the point. Mr. and Mrs. Carter, he glanced at Rachel and me, are filing for divorce on the grounds of infidelity. Evidence has been submitted, and I assume there are no disputes. Lauren's lawyer, a slick-looking man in an overpriced suit, cleared his throat. Your Honor, my client. Jack cut in smoothly. Your Honor, let me save you some time. We have video evidence, photographic proof, and a full confession from the defendants. He placed a thick folder on the judge's desk, flipping it open to reveal still frames from the affair videos. Lauren made a strangled noise. Adam turned pale. The judge glanced down at the images, then back up at them. I assume you won't be contesting the infidelity clause in the prenuptial agreement? Their lawyer looked like he had just swallowed a lemon. No, Your Honor. The judge nodded. Then let's move on to assets. This was the part one had been waiting for. Jack slid another document across the table. Per the prenuptial agreements, our clients are entitled to 80% of the marital assets. That includes bank accounts, property, vehicles, and investments. Lauren finally snapped. That's not fair, she shrieked, gripping the edge of the table like it was the only thing keeping her from collapsing. I gave 18 years to this marriage. I raised our kids while he worked. I didn't flinch. And I worked to make sure you never had to worry about anything. You had a good life, Lauren, but you threw it away. The judge sighed. Mrs. Carter, you signed this agreement before your marriage. It is legally binding. You knew the risks. Rachel smirked. And now you get to live with the consequences. Adam, ever the idiot, tried to fight back. What about the money? The joint accounts? We still have savings. Jack leaned forward, his smirk widening. Oh, you mean the offshore accounts? The ones you illegally transferred funds into after the divorce process had begun. He slid another set of documents forward. We tracked those transactions. The court considers it fraud. And since those accounts were opened under a joint marital income, he tapped the paper. The money is now legally ours. Lauren let out a small, choked sob. Adam's hands balled into fists. You son of a... Rachel cut him off. Go ahead, Adam. Finish that sentence. See how that works out for you in front of a judge." The judge held up a hand, silencing the room. "The offshore transfers will be considered an attempt to hide marital assets. I will be ordering the full amount to be returned to Mr. and Mrs. Carter. Additionally, I am granting full custody of the children to the plaintiffs, as per their wishes." Lauren's breath hitched. "What?" The judge turned to her. "Your children have made it clear they do not wish to reside with you. Given the circumstances, I see no reason to force them." Adam's lawyer stood up. "Your Honor, we believe these children have been manipulated." Jack didn't even let him finish. "Your Honor, the children are old enough to decide. They've given written statements. Would you like me to read them aloud?" The judge shook his head. "That won't be necessary." He turned to Lauren and Adam, his expression tired. "You will have visitation rights, but custody will remain with Mr. Carter and Ms. Carter." That was it. The moment Lauren and Adam lost everything. Their house, their kids, their money. Everything they had schemed to hold on to had been stripped away in less than 20 minutes. Lauren covered her face, shaking with silent sobs. Adam sat frozen, his jaw clenched, his entire body stiff with barely contained rage. Jack stood up, smoothing out his suit. "That should conclude today's proceedings. Thank you for your time, Your Honor." The judge nodded. "Divorces will be finalized in 6 months. Until then, financial agreements remain in place." Court adjourned. The gavel slammed. And just like that, it was over. I exhaled slowly, letting the weight of victory settle in my chest. Rachel leaned in close, her voice just above a whisper. "You think they get it now?" I glanced at Lauren, her shoulders hunched in defeat. At Adam, staring blankly ahead, his hands trembling with repressed anger. And I smirked. "Oh, they get it." The gavel had barely finished echoing through the courtroom before Lauren bolted from her seat. Her heels clicked against the marble floor as she rushed out, probably trying to find a corner to cry in. Adam, on the other hand, just sat there, unmoving, staring blankly at the judge's empty seat like his entire world had just been ripped out from under him. Because it had. Rachel nudged me. "Think they'll ever recover from this?" I smirked. "Not a chance." Jack packed up his files with a satisfied grin. "That was about as clean of a kill as I've ever seen. You two should be proud." I was. But I wasn't done yet. As we walked out of the courthouse, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I answered, half expecting Lauren to beg me for one last chance. Instead, a deep voice said, "You should check the news." I frowned. "Who is this?" The line went dead. Rachel raised an eyebrow. "What was that?" I opened my browser and typed in Adam's company name. And there it was, front page news. Local insurance execs caught misusing company funds for a fair love nest. I whistled low. "Well, damn." Rachel peeked over my shoulder and let out a sharp laugh. "Karma is really on our side today." The article laid it all out. Someone, probably our mystery informant, pissed off 999, had leaked evidence that Adam had been using company funds to pay for the apartment where he and Lauren carried out their affair. The firm was launching an internal investigation, and both of them had been placed on immediate unpaid leave. Rachel grinned. "They're about to be jobless and broke." I turned my phone around so Jack could see. He chuckled. "Damn, that saves us the trouble of leaking it ourselves." Lauren and Adam had been so busy trying to hide money from us, they hadn't even realized they were about to lose their entire income. Couldn't have happened to better people. Rachel stretched her arms above her head. "Well, I'd say we've done enough damage for one day. Ready to go home." I looked at her, then at Noah and Lily, who were waiting near the courthouse steps, watching us with that same sharp glint in their eyes. "No," I said. "We've got one more thing to do." That evening, we held a family meeting. The kids gathered in the living room, waiting. The atmosphere wasn't heavy like before. This time, it felt victorious. I leaned against the counter, arms crossed. "It's done," I said simply. "They're out of our lives." Rachel sat on the armrest of the couch. They lost the house, the money, the divorce case, and now, probably their jobs. Noah grinned. "So we win." I smirked. "Oh, son, we destroyed them." Lily let out a low whistle. "Damn. Feels good." It did. But as I looked at them, my son, my nieces and nephews, I felt a pang of something deeper. "They're still your parents," I said finally, my voice softer now. "And I know this is a lot. It's okay if you don't know how to feel about it yet." Noah exchanged a glance with the others before shrugging. "Honestly, we feel fine." Rachel chuckled. "You really are my kid." I let out a slow breath. Look, I won't tell you how to handle this. If you want to talk to them, that's your choice. If you don't, that's your choice too. But just know, no matter what, we're here. There was silence for a moment. Then Noah nodded. Thanks, Dad. And just like that, it felt like something settled in the air. For the first time in a long time, there was peace. 2 months later, Lauren and Adam left town. They had no choice. After the divorce was finalized, the financial bleeding only got worse for them. Lauren had to pay me monthly for child support, something that enraged her to no end. Adam, on the other hand, got hit even harder. His company fired him once the misuse of funds scandal went public, and no one else wanted to hire him. The last I heard, they were working for a small shipping company in New Orleans. They never called, never visited. The kids didn't seem to mind. Noah and Lily still had access to Lauren and Adam's phone bugs for a while. They occasionally checked in, listening to their pathetic complaints about how unfair everything was. But after a while, the kids stopped caring. And that was the biggest win of all. One night, I was sitting on the patio, sipping a beer, watching the sunset over the bayou. Rachel walked outside, cracking open a drink of her own. You ever wonder if we went too far? She asked. I considered it for a second. Then I shook my head. No. She snorted. Yeah, me neither. We clinked our bottles together, watching the last of the sun dip beneath the trees. I took a slow sip, feeling the weight of everything that had happened settle in my chest. It had been a long road. A messy, painful, twisted road. But we had come out the other side stronger. And for the first time in a long, long time, I was finally free. As I sat there on my patio, watching the last traces of sunlight disappear behind the trees, I let my mind wander over everything that had happened. The betrayal, the revenge, the battle we fought and won. But as satisfying as it was to watch karma work its magic, there were deeper lessons buried beneath the wreckage. Lessons I wouldn't forget. Trust is fragile. It takes years to build, but only seconds to shatter. I thought I knew Lauren. I thought we had something unbreakable. But the truth is, no matter how much love you give, you can't control what's in someone else's heart. People show you who they are eventually. You just have to pay attention. Family is everything. When the dust settled, it wasn't the revenge or the money that mattered. It was the people who stood by me. My kids. My sister. The ones who refused to let me drown in my own anger. At the end of the day, blood doesn't make family, loyalty does. Always protect yourself. Love is beautiful, but it's not an excuse to be blind. If I hadn't had that prenup, if I hadn't taken control of my finances, I could have lost everything. Hope for the best, but prepare for the worst. That's not paranoia, that's wisdom. And lastly, some people aren't worth saving. I spent too much time wondering why Lauren did what she did. If I had been a better husband, if I could have stopped it. But the truth? Some people are just selfish. And no matter how much you give, they'll always want more. The best revenge is letting them destroy themselves. I took another sip of my beer, exhaling slowly. Life goes on. And the best part? I was still standing.